Hi, good afternoon. Apologize for the delays. This is Amanda Marino, co-founder of Next Level Recovery Associates. I am here with Nicole McLaurin, who is a registered dietitian. I'm so grateful to have you here today with me live. You
Thank
could
you.
introduce yourself, Nicole, and just share a little bit about who you are and your background.
Of course, yeah. My name's Nicole McLaurin. I have been a registered dietitian for, oh gosh, since 2014, I think now. So it's been a while. I went to Florida State University. I got my undergrad in dietetics. I completed an internship with the Palm Beach County Health Department, which is kind of how I got started. I was working in public health and actually really enjoyed it. I really liked helping people in need, but I needed a little more freedom to give different counseling, meet different people, and I got into substance abuse. And since then, kind of have been with that since about 2017. Started working more with mental health, started working more with eating disorders, and now I kind of do a mix of all three because as you know, most of you probably know, it's hard to find, just mental health or just substance abuse because they're all really prevalent together.
Yeah,
Um,
it's so needed what you do, and there's not enough. Like there's a lot of dietitian or just registered dietitians out there, but not that have the skill set that you have, which is the combination of understanding eating disorders and understanding mental health and understanding substance use disorder, because nutrition plays a huge part into everything that we do, right? So I don't know if you know, my undergrad is in alternative medicine, which had a
I
huge
know.
focus on nutrition and a lot of holistic nutrition, and all the different, like, Eastern kind of teachings, and then also like the traditional teachings. But so I mean, so many things can be healed, cured, can be, symptoms of mental health and things like that can be shifted, and sometimes it's just about changing your diet. It can be a huge piece. So I'd love to, you know, ask you your experience on that, like working with individuals that come into, a program or come to you with a mental health concern or substance use disorder or eating disorder, and how, your work is impactful in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you said nutrition is really at the foundation. I feel like if we're not eating and fueling our bodies and, with enough calories and the right nutrients and, listening to what our physical hunger is, but also like mentally, like, what do we need? Like, what kind of day are we having? We can't be successful with recovery. We can't, accomplish all these things, have the energy, have the focus that we really need. I think one of my favorite things is meeting someone who is just so thrown off with their eating because of a million different reasons. They were using substances for a long time and are just started treatment, or their mental health has really just, been in the pits and like they really need help. They really need more structuring. And, we do something as simple as, okay, we're going to eat 3 times a day. We're going to eat breakfast, we're going to eat lunch, we're going to eat dinner, and maybe 1 or 2 snacks, depending on where we are. And usually they think I'm nuts because that's not, they haven't had any structure in their life in so long. But sometimes then I see them in a week and they're like, you know, I may not have eaten, I only ate 4 times yesterday, but I like wasn't totally exhausted at, 3 p.m. And it's so nice to see those changes happen really, really quickly. And a lot of times it's just something really simple and really small, like changing a breakfast versus like a sugary cereal with milk to, an eggs on an English muffin with a slice of cheese and some strawberries. I mean, it doesn't have to be crazy, difficult meals, but it's these little tiny switches that we can do and see pretty quick feedback and changes, which is nice.
That actually leads me to my next thing. I think, I know how you operate. We've worked. So Nicole and I have worked collaboratively together for probably about 2 years now, and really more officially, like in the last like 6 months, we finally met in person. We had actually worked with a number of clients together for years before we had met in person. So it was so awesome to meet you in person. But I think that, like, I had my own stuff, in about 9 years in recovery, that came up around food and body, like, that I had never had in my life. And I really did some research into this whole diet culture thing. So I think with what's out there, especially for like, young people, especially like what's out there with diet culture, like when you think, okay, I want to get healthy and I want to, eat better, you don't even know where to begin, right? Because there is a zillion quick fixes out there. There's a zillion kinds of fad diets and all of these things that keep people on this screwed up roller coaster. And like, that's why when I like to bring you in, because you simplify it and you educate people on how to eat healthy that's best for your body and how to listen to your body. And I know you're big with the intuitive piece, so I'd love to hear more on that. If you could elaborate.
Yes. No, I love that you bring up diet culture because it's so true. I mean, it's sad, really. I mean, there's so much information out there. The word wellness, which is really funny because I think wellness used to actually have a really strong, it was talking about, eating, nutritive foods and, getting some sort of physical activity. But now I've seen wellness really shifted to a lot of different things, I see so many diet crazes hitting social media, and it's cringeworthy. The keto, the intermittent fasting, which just to say it, for some people, if they like eating that way and they're not having another set of problems, I'm not going to tell anyone that they're doing something inherently wrong if they feel good and, they're actually listening to their body.
And it's working for them and they're not going on this, which is what America is doing. Is like gaining, losing, and on fat. And that's really and it's really hard for people with addiction, mental illness, and eating disorders when they're doing that. It just spirals.
And that's the issue, is that, especially with mental health, like, we want our mood stable. We want everything stable. We don't want to be up here in mania, and we don't want to be down here where, we don't want to get out of bed. So we want to stay in the middle. And if our blood sugar is crashing because we haven't had carbs or our eating window hasn't started yet and we haven't eaten in 14 hours, no one feels good here. But when we have a substance abuse history, substances can sometimes look pretty good because our body's looking for that dopamine response when we're this low. There's actually a lot of great studies on this, which I try to use when I have someone a little more resistant to making changes. We need those carbs to bring us up and keep us here. And on the flip side of that, of course, if we're, having a lot of sugar cravings and we're way up here because of that, that's not really a good place to be either. So we do need that balance. Which is kind of where intuitive eating comes into play. And just for sake of saying it, to intuitive eating, sometimes I get someone with a really strong eating disorder that's like, oh, I'm not hungry. I'm not feeling any hunger cues. I don't need to eat at these times. We may not be ready to start there. But I do really like intuitive eating once we've made some progress. But yeah, that was really designed by 2 dietitians years ago. And unfortunately, it wasn't something I was taught in school either. I had never heard of it until I got into this space and started researching, good approaches. But intuitive eating is 10 principles. The first one is ditching the diet. That's my favorite one, shocker, because I think it's, it's really an eye-opening one.
Can you say that one again? I'm sorry, I spoke over you asking you to say it. So sorry. So you could go through all of that.
That's okay. Ditching the diet mentality is the first one. Not having them in front of me is working with my brain, but I can list most of them. Honoring your hunger. So like listening to those like hunger cues, respecting your fullness cues, tuning out the food police, which I think is another really big one, because with all of this culture of, low carb, or this is a good food, this is a bad food, we can feel judged. Yes, good and bad. I know that's like,
we have a very healthy discussion system in my house. We don't call foods good or bad. We don't say things like that. Like, I don't allow that. We don't talk about diets. Yeah, a food can't be good or bad. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just,
if we're having a celebration and we want pizza and ice cream cake, like that's the celebration, that's the meal. If you're ready for that and you feel comfortable eating that, that's awesome.
And that doesn't mean we were bad tonight, right? Like,
no.
Label, let's go be bad and have pizza and cake. Like, I don't want that attachment for my kids, like I don't want them to relate that. I want them to focus on making sure they eat the nutritious foods that they need in their body, but also be able to enjoy fun in life.
Exactly. Because if we're cutting all of that out and ignoring it, typically, eating can be like a pendulum. Like if we're restricting and, or restricting the types of food even, and then we're presented with a pizza and that's our thing, we're probably going to eat a whole pizza or most of it because that pendulum has to swing the other direction. But yes, that's where I love intuitive eating, because it does teach us that these are not bad things to eat. But it does, I believe it's principle 10, that's gentle nutrition, the last one, that's saying that is also mindful that we do need foods that contain these good nutrients, because we can't just eat, every piece of junk food and not have anything else.
Empty calories.
Exactly. Right. I think the book refers to them as fun foods. But yeah, there's different things. Intuitive Eating, yeah, that is a great book. What is it? Elise Reich is one of the authors. It's a good one. You can listen to it too. There is a workbook that goes with it, which I do have a lot of my clients buy it. But it's really good and it also looks at body image, which is huge. Body image, I kind of, it's a therapy and a nutrition piece, but respecting our body at every size and every stage of life. I mean, there's so many things that happen to us. I mean, if you're in recovery, and you put on a few pounds, like, you have to look at this overall picture of, okay, maybe my weight has changed slightly, but I'm not using, I've cut alcohol out, I've cut substances out. Like, that's a huge win.
Yeah, and that's common. So that's very common, is to go, into early recovery, whether you go into a residential sitting or you get sober on your own or clean on your own. Sugar, that alcohol void gets filled with sugar, because alcohol is metabolized like as sugar. So many people become sugar addicted. And I know when I came into recovery, I was already extremely overweight. So I kind of was like the opposite. So I started like my health and, healthy journey, when I got sober. I, lost all the weight just by eating healthy and exercising slowly over the first couple of years. But I was opposite. I did things backwards than most people do it, but it makes sense. Like, can you speak a little to why the people that are in early recovery or in recovery become like really hooked on sugar?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot with that. And I do like, though, that you point out that, not everyone has the same experience. And I do feel like I work in a lot of residential settings, and I'll have someone that's their first time and they're terrified of gaining weight because that's all everyone has told them.
Right.
Oh, when you get sober, you're going to just pack on the pounds. And it's really sad. I've actually met a lot of clients who, one of the barriers, of course, there's many to them actually, committing to recovery, was that they didn't want to gain weight. But I always, make sure that is not just like this blanket thing that's going to happen. A lot of times, yes, if you're, not eating well because you're, drinking a lot or not in your right state of mind, then yes, like, your eating style could absolutely change. But with sugar cravings, typically that happens because of the dopamine response. When we're using or drinking, we're getting all those feel good endorphins, feel good hormones. And then all of a sudden we take it away and our body's like, what the heck? Like, where did all that go? Like, give me something. And in treatment, typically we have a lot of good food, which, for the record, at least anywhere I work, we do not supply this food so that, I don't know, I've heard it all. So that everyone's full or like carb heavy. No, we're just cooking food. And typically, people want food that's going to like fill them up and make them feel good. And that's what we get. But yeah, it's a real chemical response, though. So it isn't surprising if someone's craving sugar or just carbohydrates. So that might look like French fries or cereal. Or
it doesn't come in the sweets. It comes in the salt, the fries and the chips and the this and that. I hear both, but it is like, I feel, I remember when I was like at the beginning, early on in my recovery journey, and I was like I wanted to not just be, sober and clean. Like, I wanted to start to take care of my body. I had really high cholesterol when I was 220 pounds. So I had super high cholesterol. I was not healthy. I wanted to get healthy. And I would kind of look around and it'd be like, why aren't more people also focusing on health? Yes, getting clean and sober is the most important piece, but I want to now take care of the body that I abused. I beat the hell out of my body and my partying, and my what I call partying and my addiction. And I wanted to get healthy again. You know what I mean? And now I'm 42 and I look younger than I did when I was 26. I'll send you a picture.
I know I didn't know all this. I mean, I knew you were in recovery, but I had no idea that you had that bit large of a shift.
Yeah, I went from being a model from ages 4 to 22. So having like that, never had to work out, perfect kind of little, then I got extremely overweight to where like I was considered obese and had high cholesterol and was extremely unhealthy by the time I got sober. And, have been on this, health journey, educating myself. And I've learned so much, with myself, with my clients, with my schooling. Hold on one second. We have some questions. So if you're here and you want to say hello to myself or Nicole, please say hello. If you have any questions for Nicole, she is a registered dietitian. She does have a lot of experience with mental health, eating disorder, and individuals with substance use disorder, which is such a great skill set. So I have hello, I am overweight and hardly lose some kilograms. I'm not addicted to food, but I don't like the gym or walking. How can I motivate myself?
Motivating yourself. Okay, that's a great question.
Sorry, hold on. Go, you can answer.
Okay. Motivation is definitely different for every person, but what I typically do for a patient that's struggling with getting things going is finding your why. Whatever your why is for anything, life, if you're in recovery, your why might be the same. If you want to be sober or, be stable and present for your family, health is right there with you. Like if we're not taking care of our bodies now, who knows what kind of complications we're going to run into in the future. My other biggest thing is having consistency. Consistency is key for all of us. Whatever routine you can make with your food, with your eating I definitely think is helpful, even if it's one meal a day. If you change one meal, if you feel like you're having large portions at one meal or something really starchy or high calorie, like make one change in your day and just see how you feel from that. Sometimes getting that good feeling with one meal or one small change can motivate us to make a lot more changes. As far as activity, yes. I am a firm believer, and everyone may not believe this, but we all have an activity out there that we love. Kind of like life, right?
I was thinking the same thing reading. Like along the same line.
We all have something, and it's certainly not the same. I know right now, like there's a lot of this high intensive interval training that's really popular, and that is not for everybody. But my encouragement is like, don't be shy. Like try a yoga class, or try yoga at home, or go for a long walk. Try a water aerobics class. Do different things that might seem like you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this. I have a client recently who Amanda knows, I'll tell her later, that is, to me, it seems super shy, super timid, super she talks so softly. When I first met her, I would have to lean this close to her to hear. And she just told me the other day that she really enjoys Zumba classes. I was so shocked because I've been working with her for a while. I'm like, you do Zumba, like you will go to a class. And to me, that sounds super intimidating. And I would not.
There's so much out there. So I wanted to, you may think, so I also wouldn't focus on numbers and weight loss. I don't worry about that. So for the woman that's asking, I think that focusing on just moving your body and try different things. Right. So don't focus on a number because that will just mess your head up. At least it has for me. Just trying to focus on like even Nicole said, changing one meal a day to a healthier meal. And, that has it's balanced nutrition, and then moving your body, because whether we don't like to go to the gym or we don't like to walk, movement keeps the body healthy. We're not meant to be sedentary. We're not meant to be, not move. And that's how, if you don't move it, you lose it too. With people that get older, you see these older people running half marathons and things like that. And you see these healthy older individuals that are able to do things into their 80s, 90s, and I want that.
It's amazing.
So I want us to remain healthy and not about, numbers on a scale.
Great. I agree.
What are your thoughts on numbers? Let's talk about numbers. Let's talk about people getting fixated on calories. Blake's here, so say hello to Blake.
Hi, Blake.
And we have a friend from Ghana on here. I was actually supposed to come to Ghana, but then the pandemic came. I was supposed to come speak at a women's World Global Conference out there, so I missed out on that. So maybe I'll get to Ghana. But let's talk about numbers. Numbers on the scale, numbers of calories, macros. Let's hear our experience on that, Nicole.
Oh man, I do not love numbers for so many reasons. I'll start with macros. Little bit about me. I used to be super into CrossFit. I did a lot of sports in high school and didn't do as many in college, but when I graduated, I got right into CrossFit, and macros were huge. Everyone talked macros, and everyone wanted my opinion because I was the dietitian. I hate numbers. I remember thinking that like, oh, they must have like this great calculation, this great way of knowing what each individual person needs. And then they don't. There's online calculators, and I have equations that I have to use for facilities to, have someone's calories in there, for when we get cited by, a government agency or something like that. But I don't look at them. They're just there to be there. Numbers really have no meaning. There's no way to know how much your body actually needs, in my opinion, at least. It all depends on your exercise, your active, I shouldn't say exercise, your physical activity levels. A lot of it is also genetic. It's cultural, which I know people hate hearing, but it's true. Like we all have a different basal metabolic rate. You might have heard BMR, resting metabolic rate, RMR, and we all burn at different levels.
Absolutely.
So some of us burn more just at sitting at rest than others do. And yeah, it can suck if you're struggling with, your weight and you want to make changes. But there's a really cool video on YouTube called Poodle Science. I encourage everyone to watch it. It's about dogs and dog breeds and how, we see a Doberman Pinscher, we see a Bulldog, or we see a Greyhound, or Yorkie. Perfect. Amanda's not upset that her Yorkie is tiny and fits in her hands. And we can all accept that. Or a Shih Tzu? Okay. Or a Shih Tzu is that size. But then, when we're looking at our bodies, we get really upset. I want to be a Greyhound, or I want to be a Yorkie, but maybe we're a Bulldog, or maybe we're
Pitbull. That's my name.
A pit bull, or another really large animal that we don't want to be, but that's our genetics.
It is.
And I'm not saying we can't all make changes. Of course, there's always leeway, but that's another reason why I really don't like calorie counting in numbers. Weight on a scale.
Can you put the link after this live, because it will be streaming? Can you come on to LinkedIn and put the link for the Intuitive
Science
book and the pool video?
Yes, okay. I will put those on. Numbers on the scale. Scale numbers are silly. And in fact, if you've ever met someone with a true eating disorder that's in recovery and they've been to they might have tricks for showing you how you can make scale numbers look different. Water weight, fluids affect weight so much. Weight is something that I think we're taught, has all this meaning and all this, and really it's just literally, what our body mass weighs. That includes our bones, our organs. Weight is so meaningless in my mind. Lean body mass has so much more meaning. I mean, if you're, doing some sort of resistance training, whether it's with weights or bands or whatever it is that you're doing, that's going to have more weight, way more on a scale than someone who's sedentary, could actually be pretty unhealthy. I don't like using that term, but, not moving their body, sitting a lot. It also doesn't tell us anything about our mental state. Someone could be at this great weight, but they could be mentally super unhealthy, emotionally a mess. And we might look at them and think wow, I would love to look like them. But in reality, you don't want to go
get to that. Yeah. I mean, I know that my experience with, so I don't know what I weigh. I haven't known what I've weighed for about 2 years plus. If I go to the doctor, for me, it's not a helpful tool of information. And when my dad was a fitness competitor and he passed away when I was pregnant with my daughter. So I was like, I want to honor my dad and do a fitness show. And that's what triggered my body image issues, was counting the things and being really strict and rigid. And I thought once I got to this, I always felt once I got to this place with my body after being so overweight that I would have arrived and I would have this happiness. And I was actually the most miserable when I was in the leanest, best shape of my life, because it didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel good. And so I had to make a bunch of changes in my life to where I can't subscribe to any kind of fad diet. I can't do any kind of for me, it's how I feel what things feel like on my body, how, and I'd like to be active just because it feels good. I would do things that feel good.
And that's the best thing. I mean, if you knowing that seeing that number is so, this objective label, that doesn't do much for most of us. Again, even if you see someone that you think like, oh, they probably love looking at their weight, they probably don't.
Yeah, I don't think anyone I know really is a fan of it. I mean, it's just like, and I'm big. Like I'm like I have big bones. I'm muscular. Like I'm. So for me, like 150 pounds is like extremely lean on me, whereas 150 pounds on somebody would be like massive.
That's a great example. And height, that's another reason why I cannot stand weight. And I this can go for men too. I certainly don't mean to leave men out, but I think for women, height really throws off. I mean, someone that's, over 5'5" or 5'6" for a woman is typically considered tall. And, but when they look at a scale, they don't always see that. They hear their friends talking, these low numbers, and they're like, I would never get there. So I think that's
ditch the scale. I know at the one eating disorder walk, like you smash scales, and like that was such a fun exercise. So I say ditch the scale. But Blake has a question for you, which is from a male and coming from a different perspective. So as someone who's very active and trying to put on clean weight, I don't know what that clean weight is, but also hates cooking at home, do you have any suggestions to ensure I'm getting enough calories, macros, protein, etc.?
Yes. Hates cooking. I'm right there with you, Blake. I feel like when I was meeting dietitians fresh out of college, they were all like very into cooking and doing all these things. And I've never really enjoyed cooking. I've learned to feed my family, but it's not something that it's not something that I'm super passionate about. So I understand that.
I'm not home and like it's like at someone else's house and it's vacation. Like when I go to my aunt's house in LA, I'm down with cooking and enjoying it as like a fun activity. But when it's home, it's not the same for me.
Yeah, it's almost like the pressure to have to do it. Yes, lots of things. Making sure you're eating enough. Definitely the frequency. I mean, typically if you're trying to put on size, I mean, you need to be eating. I typically tell people every like 3 to 4 hours max, but if you're trying to add size, it might even be every like 2 to 3. And getting in those nutrient dense carbohydrates. So like your oatmeal, your sweet potatoes, or white potatoes. It's really just like a fiber vitamin thing. Rice, like getting those things in is really helpful because typically it's easier to get those carbs in than like tons of fat or even tons of protein because those increase satiety, so it makes us full sooner, and protein keeps us full for a lot longer. While you still need those, it's easier to jam those carbs in. Liquid calories are also really helpful, so like smoothies or there are some pre-made shakes. It depends on what you like, but like Orgain has one that I think is pretty good. It's more plant-based. Truthfully, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of newer ones that I'm not as familiar with, but looking for some carbs, looking for some protein is a good option.
So frequency and more carbs and protein.
Frequency, more carbs and protein. And also, I don't know how open you are to meal delivery programs, but I'm a huge advocate for those. And not necessarily like Home Chef or those where they send you the ingredients in a box. Those are great. Nothing wrong with those, but that's still cooking.
Yeah. I've definitely done a number of the meal delivery services, and then I get sick of like just the same things. And then sometimes for me, it's too much. But he said, Blake said he's drinking an Orgain right now.
Oh, okay, great. We're on the same page. Yes. I really like those. Yeah. I wouldn't be afraid to look into those meals, even if you only did it for lunches or only for breakfast or something like that. But I think like having those like pre-packaged meals where it has like some vegetables, some good carbs, and some protein, like you're getting a good mix. I know there's tons in the area, but anyway, sounds like you're off to a good start.
He also said, haha, yeah, we had HelloFresh, but we canceled it because we hated cooking.
I totally get this. It's so funny. My husband actually really likes cooking, but he works insane hours, so he's never here to do it. And I absolutely don't like cooking. So it's funny how that is, but I like to bake though, if that's any consolation. I feel like I need something for that.
Baking's fun. I like baking with the kids,
Yeah, exactly. There's more reward with baking or something. I don't know.
Okay. So ditch the scale, don't worry. Like what it's okay. We both have worked with people that are really fixated on the calories. I know we touched on that, but like what can you just kind of like explain a little bit more about calories? We did macros, we talked about the scale, but like the calorie thing, I think
Yeah. Like actually calorie counting, which you're right is huge. I mean, looking at a food label and like just tracking the calories, just looking at that. Calories are really just energy for our body. So if your body is telling you, you know, you ate a meal and it was 300 calories, let's just say, someone that, you know, was trying to eat something small, but you're still hungry. Okay, like so what does that mean? You know, where are you with that? Like if you designate your calories for all these meals, like are you going to allow yourself to eat something else? It becomes this really weird control game, especially in the mental health, substance abuse, of course, eating disorder frame. You know, diets can become really addicting, like all this MyFitnessPal and all these other calorie and macro trackers. It can be another way of just addiction. And I've actually met a few people who, but I'm sorry.
I've done all of them.
Yep.
I'll be honest. I did all the things.
It's true. I mean, it's this form of control, right? If we're looking for control and we're cutting other things out of our life that were negative, it's also easier to normalize calorie counting and really eating disorders or disordered eating in general. Like when it's about food, you can tell people, oh, I'm doing it for my health. Like it's health, it's wellness, it's all these good things. But if we're, you know, trying to eat this small number of calories, or which I see a lot too, people will tell me, well, you know, it's dinner and I only have like, you know, 10 grams of protein left and like, you know, 20 grams of carbs and basically no fat or something. I'm like, okay, well, that's like, do you think this is working? Because you're clearly not eating enough. But yeah, being fixated on numbers with calorie counting and again, tracking all these things is kind of a gateway to eating disorders. There's actually a lot of good articles on that. People that really weren't doing it because of body image. Like I think a lot of times we think eating disorder, oh, they must just have done it because they want to lose weight or they want to be skinnier, but it's not always that. Sometimes people kind of fall into it. They're like, well, I used to drink all the time, so now I go to the gym 3 times a day, and now I'm tracking my calories and tracking this. And
I've done it all. I have.
it's a free slope.
I promise you, I did it all. And when I found like the hashtag diet culture, hashtag F diet culture. And then when I started finding all this stuff out there, I got really angry. I got angry for young women, young men there's men because I have a friend that's starting a whole coaching practice. I think I introduced you,
Yes.
You know, surrounding men with body image issues. I never had this as growing up. I never had body image, eating disorder, any of that stuff. And diet culture, I got sucked into this whole thing and I got pretty angry for my little girl, for my kids, for the clients I work with, that like this multi-billion-dollar industry is targeting us to have disordered eating and have body image issues and have spiraling eating disorders that necessarily weren't there. Cause I couldn't identify with like people that were like, oh, well, I've had it since I was a kid. It was my first core thing. And I'm like I was 9 years in recovery at the time. And that's when I started to have my stuff. And I was like, well, where is this coming from? This is like new for me. And it's because I fell into it. I got sucked in. And of course I had some part in it. I'm not saying like, you know, I made choices, but I'm so much happier now, just like eating what I want and doing what I want and, you know, just taking care of myself and exercising and just being happy in me.
No, I love it. You bring up the anger. I can't remember the book I read, but there's a book about this that kind of like the stages of it. I mean, anger, yeah. I mean, especially people who've thrown money at like diets or something like Weight Watchers or these things that they were always taught was so great. And then they're learning about, you know, the sick, you know, cycle, the sick spiral of what this is. It can make you so angry. And yeah, talking about like the next generations, I think it's even harder because social media and all these platforms, like I can't even keep up with them about, you know, what kind of body image we're throwing out, what's the new dieting phase, all of these videos and images, you know, people feel like they just have to look a certain way all the time. It's really tricky. It's a really tricky way to navigate. One of the biggest things I always tell my eating disorder patients is that no one is born with an eating disorder. It is something that we are learn from our environment. There is some research showing a genetic trait, but also, you know, are you learning it because at home that's how mom and or dad were with food and eating? Like, I don't know.
We have to be careful as parents, like, if we are like doing something, like say we're doing a challenge or like, something, whatever it is, or we have to be really careful with how we model and say it to our children. Like my daughter got on the scale at Publix, and she's still young and thinks it's fun and whatever. And her dad's reaction was, wow, you're so big. But she's now a tween. So in her head, she heard that means that I'm too big. And so I had to remind her dad, like, you're dealing with a young girl who's going through puberty. You cannot say things about it like it used to be cute. Oh, you're getting so big. That's not cute anymore. You have to be like, oh, that's awesome. You're so healthy and strong and, whatever. Like, kids just like to go on the scale when they go in Publix. It's just a thing.
It's so true. Yeah. I mean, and it changes quickly. My kids are still super young, but even now they'll ask like, why do people weigh themselves? And that's sometimes a hard question for me to answer. I'm like, well, there's a lot of different reasons you can weigh yourself, but it makes me think, I'm like, well, how do I want them to perceive weight and scales? And it's funny you bring up Publix. I actually read something recently. They're talking about doing away with the scales inside the grocery stores.
Good. It's a shame. For some people, it's a filter. It's like,
I don't think it's for that. It's something about the people that are making the scales. I was something like they're discontinuing them or something. So I think it's more of like they don't have anyone to maintain them. But
people, because it's cute when you're like a little kid. And, oh, I'm 30 pounds. Oh, but when I'm watching my daughter now, like, and I'm trying to protect her and educate her on like, on all these things that like, and it just is, I don't want her to go down that hole. I see so many young girls go down,
you're
like,
right.
perfect and beautiful and you're muscular and you're in shape and you're healthy and you're athletic. And, I try not to use like just certain adjectives with praising children too. You know what I mean? Like, you're smart, you're creative, there's so many other ways we can compliment besides
not just physical beauty. Yeah, that's huge. That's a really big one. And I've had to do some like continuing education on that because I don't feel like we're really taught that. We're, like how do you compliment someone without talking about their appearance? And I do think I've gotten better at it, but it's hard. It wasn't normal. It was like, oh, like you look nice today. And like, oh, wow. Like I right off the bat said something about someone's appearance, and that can be hard, especially in treatment. If you tell someone, oh, you look nice today, they'll think that as, did I gain weight? Do I look different? Which I've been challenged on before. And, I had to really work on that language. So it's interesting how much I've had to really change just very little things about myself and the way I talk, thinking, wow, I didn't mean it anything like that. But
yeah, my daughter's dad purely did not mean it. And when I shared it with him, what it did for her, he was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And he goes, and I just told her that I used to be so overweight and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, we just have, we're in a different phase now. You know what I mean? We have to just be really careful with how and what we say to her, because she's not a baby anymore. She's like, she's turning into a tween, and we have to like, there's a lot of stuff out there that targets girls her age to make them sick.
It's so true. I mean, there's so many things from the clothing to the expectations of, I don't know, styles and different things that it's a different world. But back to the scales in public, I do think not just Publix, but anywhere there's like a place where you can weigh yourself. I mean, I see so many people that in treatment don't weigh themselves because they don't have access to a scale. But the second they leave, they will go to Publix sometimes and weigh themselves. I mean, it's crazy how that can be an addiction in and of itself. It's just seeing that number and getting on that scale. Yes, I wish there was definitely more that we could, as a culture do to just, say we don't need these scales. Like
it's one metric. It's one metric of your body, and it's one that she can change like 10 times in a day. I remember with me, the reason I ditched the scale was because if I would go on the scale and I would be a lower number, I would be like, oh, cool, I can eat a bunch of shit today. And then if I was a higher number, then I'd feel bad about myself and shame myself. But sometimes as a woman, our weight can fluctuate so much in 1 week with hormones and all the things. So like I said, it was just a mind game that like I decided to step off that merry-go-round, and when I tell like people like, oh, my goal is to lose 20 pounds. I'm like, well, it's awesome to have a goal, but like, I'd say just your goal is, how you feel in your clothes and how your energy level and like, what you're able to do. If you weren't able to walk very far, if you're able to walk like around like further thing now, like that's awesome. That's progress. Like all those things are progress, not just your unit count on a scale.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. When you really step back and look at it, something I try to ask a lot of people that are so fixated on their weight is, okay, let's just say you woke up tomorrow 20 pounds lighter. Like, what would that really do for you? And typically it's always, I would feel better. I would be more confident. But then that's what then that's the piece we're missing. We're missing self-confidence. So how do we build self-confidence without being so focused on this number for virtually no reason?
Because you can get to that number and still not have that confidence. Been there, done that.
Exactly.
I felt worse, which is
which is something I feel like that's something we could totally use more of in all these, especially residential facilities, is someone who's gone through things like this and be like, yeah, I've lost all the weight and I've been the numbers I wanted to be, and I still didn't feel good. I was unhappy with different things. So I think that's, it's there's always little things that I'm thinking like, I wish we could just plant this younger, especially working with adolescents. That's something I'm trying to do more. Truthfully, with adolescents, the nutrition needs are a little bit different. So it used to be something that I tried to really stay away from. But lately I'm like, why are we letting people get to their, 30s, 40s thinking this way and then making changes? Like, we need to be tackling this at much younger ages so that they're not going through all of this, beating themselves up and poor self-confidence and all that.
Yeah, I have a 17, almost 18-year-old son, and he was a massive human. He is like a Adonis. He's 6'3" and like,
wow,
like very. But he ran his whole life. He ran on a little bit of the chunkier side. He was just always a big boy, And I've watched him just transform into being much more active and watching his confidence with how he's eating, educating himself on nutrition, on not over exercising. And I always tell him to like listen to his body, because I'll be like, babe, if you're falling asleep on the couch right now, your body's telling you don't need to go meet your friend at the gym. Like, you need to take a nap, and try to teach him those to pay attention to those cues now. Like, yes, it's great to have goals. It's great to want to, to be committed, but like sometimes what you need the most is to say, no, today I'm not like, I don't subscribe to that mentality where people like will bully you. Oh, well, you're taking the wimpy way out. No, I'm listening to my body and I'm honoring myself. And I'll tell you right now, at my age, I am very comfortable with telling people no. It's a complete answer for me. I don't get bullied into like trying to do one. If it doesn't feel right, I'm not going to do one more round of the workout. If I feel lightheaded, I'm going to listen to myself. But there was a time when that was not the case.
I can definitely relate to that. I feel like working out's always been my release. I don't think I've ever really truly struggled with food. Maybe for a little while in college when I was learning all about nutrition. That can be a weird cycle when you're in a classroom with tons of people that everyone's obviously focused on nutrition and eating. But working out has always kind of been a release. So yeah, that CrossFit mentality of, no days off or all these things. Yeah, one more rep, or, you can always finish this. And I think it took for me having children. And I'm like, this doesn't feel good anymore. And I don't want to leave the gym feeling so tired that I can't get through the rest of my day. I used to work out at 5 a.m. It's like, if I left the gym at 6 o'clock feeling worse than when I got there, I'm like, okay, something's wrong here. Like, this is adding up. So I think that's huge. And I think teaching kids that young also, I mean, boys do have it really tough. I think sometimes even more so with the body image, because if they're not the right size, whatever that means. I think there's less camaraderie with males than maybe with females of, oh yeah, I understand that, guys aren't maybe as likely to talk about those feelings with their friends. We're girls, maybe more with like your closest group of friends. So I love that someone that's actually working on body image with males, because it's a really big struggle.
I've had a lot of men share with me over the years, and they don't really tell people. They don't talk about it, and so there is a space for you if you are a male that struggles with body image or eating disorders or any of that. There is help for you out there, and you are not alone. I know a lot of men that have shared that with me.
And a lot more eating disorder treatment facilities are taking men, which I think is big. For so long, a lot of them didn't. which is good to hear. But also just having that support outside, like finding a therapist that you can really relate to, and a dietitian or someone that can help you with eating is really big to help them bridge that gap too.
Awesome. So as a closing piece, so just kind of like, I know it's going to be such a broad question, but like if someone today wants to like get healthier, like what are just a couple things they could do today to make healthier choices, like without having to change the whole wide world and take on all this stuff or go spend all this money? Like what are a few simple things that individuals can do today to become healthier?
Yes, it definitely depends on the person, but I've said it a million times already in the past 45 minutes, but consistency. We cannot have these days where, I was busy, so I skipped meals, or I ate, one really huge meal at the end of my day because I didn't have time to eat here or there. Keeping those things consistent, like committing to that. Like if you have to write it down, I've had people put alarms in their phones, whatever it takes. And eating a meal can look different to everyone. Like if a Greek yogurt and a banana is all you really want for lunch because you're not that hungry, great. I don't care. Like put something in your body that helps, and also not depriving yourself of what really sounds good. I mean, if you really want spaghetti for dinner, have spaghetti with dinner. Like have that pasta. Have maybe a fist-sized portion and see how you feel. Maybe you need more than that, but let's work it in. Like let's slow it down and eat mindfully. Like be present at that meal to see what you actually need.
I like that you said to touch on the eating slower. That's one thing. Like I see everybody eats so fast, and we're supposed to chew a lot more than we do.
15 to 20 times per bite. I was told that once by a GI doctor, and that if everyone chewed every bite of their food 15 to 20 times, which is a lot, I've tried it and it feels like this is going to take an hour.
Right.
But he's like, I wouldn't have a job if everyone chewed their food 15 to 20 times a bite, because digestion starts in the mouth with, chewing. So if we're able to start it here, then the rest of our system has a lot less work to do.
Yeah.
But
any other thing that someone could do today, maybe for the woman that doesn't like to walk or go to the gym, maybe what would you recommend to her?
I would say just randomly pick one physical movement activity that you've always wanted to try and you've never had the courage to try before. Try it. And that could be so many things. It does not have to be, traditional walking, jogging, going to the gym. I'm trying to think of something kind of different. Amanda, you said you went a long time ago to one of those Smash places.
Yeah, the Smash Room. I'm going actually Friday.
Okay. Did you feel? I've heard people tell me they feel like they get okay.
Oh yeah,
that's a great example.
I mean, like going out on a canoe or a kayak. If you have kids, taking them to do something and playing with them.
Trampoline parks are big. If you have a kid, that's a great workout. There are so many ways to move our bodies, and I think we all get stuck that it has to be a gym or a yoga studio or this or that. It can be a million different things. And if you hate it, if you do one, whatever it is, and you're like, wow, that sucked, that was terrible, great, never do it again. Choose something different. I know it's hot right now if you're in South Florida, or I guess really the Southeast, but do something inside if you have to. Like anything that you can do. Sorry, my battery's running low. Anything that you can do to move your body and make yourself feel good is a win.
Yeah. And if you hate walking, like, the moods, I don't like to walk. I put on either good music, good podcasts. There's so many things we can listen to that can kill that time. Like if we don't really enjoy it, that makes it more enjoyable.
Yeah. Or mall walking if it's too hot. I know a lot of the malls around here, they're filled with mall walkers. It's so funny. I used to think that was such a silly thing to do. And then as I've gotten older, I'm like, I wouldn't mind just
I'd be a mall walker.
Walking around the mall. Like that sounds like a great idea.
So thank you so much so how can people find you? So I want to be like, how people can find you on our website, the Next Level Recovery Associates website. Nicole's profile is on there, but how can people find you? Are you here on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn. That would actually probably be the best way right now to find me, Nicole
Awesome.
McLaurin, on there. I am working on a business Instagram. I do not have a website right now, but yes,
I'm going to
going
help
to
you.
next level or LinkedIn at the time for the time being is best.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time and energy today. Again, I'm Amanda Marino. This is Nicole McLaurin, registered dietitian, talked about, mental health and nutrition and eating disorders and substance use disorder and just kind of diet culture and just, healthier mindsets on ways that we can all do better, for ourselves, for our clients, for our children. So thank you so much for taking the time today. And I apologize for being late. I had a huge tech issue. So thank you for your patience and your time, Nicole.
No worries. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on and giving me the opportunity to speak.
Absolutely. Have a great afternoon.
Bye. Thank you.